Hey nerdy knitter, Harry Potter fans everywhere are celebrating with the release of the latest Fantastic Beasts movie. And of course, what better way to celebrate on a knitting channel than to share some great Harry Potter and Wizarding World inspired knitting patterns. We're going to look at some scarves, some socks, mittens, and even some pullover sweaters that you can knit to show your true love for the Wizarding World. But before we do, I just want to say, hey, I'm Tanya here at Nerdy Knitting. I'm a certified knitting instructor and a knitwear designer. My goal is to help you become a more confident, adventurous knitter. I spent a lot of time searching through so many Harry Potter inspired and Wizarding World inspired knitting patterns that it was really hard to narrow it down, but I narrowed it down to just 10. Some of these are replicas of things from some of the movies, but most of them are just inspirations that you could wear to pay homage to the Wizarding World. Now, if you'd like to see knitting patterns that produce replicas of garments that were actually in the movies, let me know in a comment, and that's something that we can tackle in the future. But let's take a look at the Harry Potter inspired patterns we're going to look at today, and we're going to start with two simple scarf patterns. One of them uses those very wide stripes that we see in the first Harry Potter movie, and then the other uses the really narrow stripes that we see in later movies. If you're interested in knitting one of these scarves, they're both free patterns. They have full video tutorials to walk you through them, and they're appropriate for beginners who are tackling one of their first projects. If you can know the basics and you're ready to tackle something like this is a great way to start with full video tutorials that walk you through every step. And of course, the patterns are free. Now, this pattern from Sheep and Stitch, it uses the narrow stripes and it's knit in a DK weight yarn. And this pattern from Studio Knit has the wider stripes and uses worsted weight yarn. Now, a lot of the patterns I really fell in love with are from this book, Knitting Magic by Tanis. It's a collection of knitting patterns from a lot of different designers, and there's so many lovely things in here. I'm highlighting some of them today, but there are plenty more in this book. There's actually a second book in this series because the first one was so popular. So if you love the world of Harry Potter and you're a knitter, then these books are worth having on your shelf. And one of the patterns I fell in love with was the Wizarding Transportation Scarf by the author Tanis. So this scarf is worked in the round. You're using a stranded colorwork method, so you do have to have some skills here. But it's seamless. Both sides are going to look absolutely lovely. There won't be a right side and a wrong side. You can easily adjust the length by repeating the different motifs, and the ends are closed by just attaching some fringe. And it uses worsted weight yarn, comes in one size, but of course the length is adjustable. And it's more for intermediate to advanced knitters because of that stranded colorwork. If that's something you'd like to explore, then this is a great way to give it a try. Now, I have one more scarf pattern that I wanted to share, and it's from this book as well, the Dark Mark Illusion Scarf. This one is so neat. It uses illusion knitting, which might seem like it's difficult, but it's really not. You use two high contrast colors and you work in just simple garter stitch alternating between the two colors. And then to create that illusion, you're just using a pattern of knits and purls, and it creates this really cool hidden image. Now, this one's done in worsted weight yarn with those two high contrast colors. It comes in one size, and it's suitable probably for an adventurous beginner to an intermediate knitter. Now, that's probably plenty of scarves to knit, so let's move on to some other things, like this lovely tam designed by Tanis, the School of Witchcraft and Wizardry tam. So this is worked in the round. You're using two contrasting colors, and of course you could use your Hogwarts house colors. And it features a corrugated rib brim. That's just the brim is worked in two colors as well. And then you increase for the body of the tam and you work those various colorwork motifs using stranded knitting. And it features the Hogwarts crest, Harry's glasses, bubbling cauldrons, the Deathly Hallows symbol, lightning bolts, golden snitches, and the Hogwarts acceptance letters too. This is done in DK weight yarn in two colors, comes in one size, and it's probably for an intermediate knitter who wants to explore some stranded colorwork knitting. Now, the next design on my list is also a stranded colorwork design. I just think they're a great way to add really interesting motifs to your knitting. So these mittens are perfect as well for those who want to explore more stranded colorwork knitting. Now, there are 4 different mitten patterns in this collection designed by Dianna Walla, and it uses that Norwegian style of mitten where you get that pointed top. Now, each set has a stylized motif on the back of the hand, something that represents each of the different houses at Hogwarts. They all have a striped cuff and then a smaller repeating motif across the palm side of the mitt. And then a really nice touch is the initial for each of the house on the thumb of the mitten. Now you use 2 colors of fingering weight yarn for this pattern, and it's probably suitable for an intermediate to advanced knitter. Now our last accessory is for our feet, a pair of socks, the Marauder socks by Lisa K. Ross. These are done in stranded colorwork again, but if you like those fun socks that have messages on the soles of the feet, but you'd like some Harry Potter inspired ones, then this pair is for you. And this pattern comes from the second Knitting Magic book. Now it's knit in 2 colors using that stranded colorwork method, worked from the top down with a standard heel flap and gusset. There's a little starry motif all over the sock, but the legs of the sock say, "I solemnly swear I am up to no good," and then the soles of the feet, you have the words "mischief managed" on them. Just such a cute pair of socks. Now this uses a light fingering weight yarn, it comes in 2 sizes, and it's appropriate for an intermediate to advanced knitter. Now before we look at those sweater patterns, would you mind giving this video a thumbs up? It will help the video reach more people, and I'd really appreciate it. Now the first sweater on our list is the House Pride sweater by Meghan Regan, a really fun top-down circular yoke design that uses stranded colorwork. Now there are 4 different sweaters here, 1 for each house, and each one uses motifs related to that particular house along with smaller motifs. There's patterning across the yoke of the sweater and then slightly further down depending on which sweater you choose. Now, of course, you're using stranded colorwork. It's a yoke sweater that's worked in the round from the top down, and it's using 2 colors, a background color and then that contrasting color for the colorwork design. Uses fingering weight yarn, comes in 18 sizes for intermediate to advanced knitters. Then we have one more design from this book, Mrs. Weasley's Christmas Sweater Patterns. And if you've watched the movies, then you know that Mrs. Weasley was a prolific knitter and knit sweaters for all of the kids in her family, and Harry as well. And if you want one of those sweaters, then you'll find a pattern in this book. This sweater is a drop shoulder design. You work the pieces flat. There's some ribbing and then lots of stockinette stitch, so it's really very simple. Then you seam the pieces up together so you have your finished sweater. Then you use duplicate stitch to add the letter to the front of the sweater. And there's a graph with all of the letters of the alphabet available, so you can put whatever letter you'd like on your sweater. This pattern comes in 10 sizes, worked in worsted weight yarn, and is probably for an intermediate knitter or somebody who feels ready to tackle a really simple sweater design. This is not difficult at all. Next is the Quidditch Yoke Pullover from Biscotte Yarns. Now, if you're a fan of Quidditch, then this might be the sweater that you want to knit. Now, this is also a top-down circular yoke construction, and it uses that stranded colorwork design. But what's fun about this one, it also includes some beading in that yoke. The little golden snitch motifs, they include small beads as well to enhance that design in the sweater itself. It uses DK weight yarn in 4 different colors, comes in 7 sizes, probably suitable for an intermediate knitter or somebody who's really interested in adding beading to their knitting as well. Our last sweater is Owls by Kate Davies. Now this is just an adorable design. It's not a Harry Potter inspired knit, but of course there are plenty of owls in the movies, so why not pay homage to them in this sweater? Now this sweater is worked in the round, but it's worked from the bottom up, and it also uses a circular yoke construction. There's no stranded color work here though. Instead, the yoke features these adorable little owls, and they're made with cables, and then you have buttons that you use for the little eyes. It's knit in bulky weight yarn, comes in 10 sizes, probably suitable for an adventurous beginner to intermediate knitter. Now there are certainly more Harry Potter and Wizarding World inspired patterns out there, but if you'd like to have a collection of patterns, then I really encourage you to check out these 2 books. Knitting Magic, this is the first one, and then there's also a second Knitting Magic book as well. They're filled with so many great designs. I'll have links down below so you can check them out. And if looking at the knitted garments in TV shows or finding replica knitting patterns is interesting to you, you'll want to check out this playlist right here where I explore that very topic. Click right there and I'll see you in the next video.